He keeps wanting gift cards. Have you? I'm certain you've been getting these as well.
Yeah, I get the emails, and it says something like, "Do you have a moment? We need to handle something discreetly."
It's always discreet.
I don't even open it.
Yes, please send these. I need you to hand. I'm in a meeting right now, but I need 2 Amazon gift cards.
Yeah, it's urgent request.
I wonder how many people listening to us right now and in the church are getting these just insane spam emails from someone purporting to be the Reverend Dr. Mac Brunson. Jared, have you gotten these yet?
Hope not.
Jared's brand new to the staff.
Yeah.
Barely knows what his job is.
Still don't know.
He told me that a couple weeks ago. Still doesn't.
All scripted that dude.
He hasn't gotten it.
I get them every week.
Oh yeah, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the main stuff in my spam folder. Although I gotta say, email's been around now. Has email been around for 35 years or so? Joanna's looking. Get those numbers on my desk.
Is this what?
No, 1971.
Is that right? Oh wow.
Well, mainstream email's been around, we'll say, since mid 90s or so, and I'm making it up. It's mainly what I do here. And spam, I feel like spam has gotten a lot better. The spam problem.
Yeah.
Like the automation
It's
and
more
this
controlled.
and that.
Yeah.
What do you use for a personal email address? Yahoo, Gmail?
So we have a Gmail, Chesney Family 8. Chesney Family 8 at Gmail. That's
wow.
That's
so
our family.
Okay, so if people want to email the Chesney family.
Well, yeah.
That's right, because you got 8 people in the family, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but other than that, I don't have a personal.
Oh, okay.
I just use the church account.
I was just asking to see, because Gmail, I've used Gmail forever and ever, and it seems like their spam filtering is great. They're of course like listening at an NSA level to like everything that we say and sending us results. That happened to me one time. I was having a conversation with my wife in the car, and I was talking to her about that. Did you ever see those comedy song guys, Flight of the Conchords? Have you heard of these guys? Josh is vigorously nodding his head. They're from New Zealand. They were really big like 15 years ago or something like that. I'm talking to my wife about this, and I pull out my phone, and I open up YouTube, and that's the top result was Flight of the Conchords. And I had not watched any of that. I mean, it had been at least 5 years since I've watched anything. And I'm just, man, they're listening. They're listening. They're listening to us. They're listening. There's a microphone up there. I think I might have had too much coffee today. Hey, Pastor Barry, great to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
Pastor's out of town. Pastor Barry preached yesterday, so we get to hang out today. We finally get to say everything that we wanted to say about Pastor Mac. I just feel like Pastor Mac's got an unhealthy obsession with gift cards, Pastor Barry. I hate to say that behind his back. Anyway, no, I'm just joking around. I noticed how you didn't add anything to that. That's okay.
No comment.
No comment. We could joke about how Pastor's out because the Cowboys lost last night. That's always a funny one to do. That's right. Jared, that's right. Jared and I, well, we'll come back to that in a second. Are you an NFL guy at all?
Oh, yeah, I like the Cowboys.
Oh, okay.
I lived in Dallas. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that they lost last night. Cooper Rush just not holding it together for him.
Well, I think Dak is back now, right?
Is he coming back?
I think he's back next Sunday, or this Sunday.
Well, that'll be fun to see him come back. Because there were all these people, all the fan theories were saying that Dak is washed now because Cooper Rush is doing well, so they're not going to bring it back and all this. I don't know. It's funny seeing how all that goes. But Jared and I were joking because like I love the Baltimore Ravens and they keep like losing in the fourth quarter this year. He loves the Denver Broncos and they have just been they've been abysmal this year, just terrible. And so we decided we're both going to be bandwagon Eagles fans, right?
Okay.
Why have you not bought us those sweatshirts? You said you were going to buy us sweatshirts.
I'm waiting on Bonnie to give me a raise.
Bonnie's in charge of payroll. He needs a raise. The NFL gear, it's expensive.
Yeah, they don't play around.
It's a racket.
I'll get Eagles gear for the house, for the team.
Okay, yeah, just the same as when you get us all that specialized water.
Yeah.
Do you remember that on Jared's first day?
Oh, yeah, the Liquid Death. Yeah.
Liquid, I forgot what it's called. Liquid Death?
I'm staff meeting for everybody.
Yeah, I've seen him with it.
Okay, right.
Have you ever had that before?
No.
I haven't had it.
No.
You're all gonna love it. It's so good.
What do you? I know you're not much of a coffee guy. Do you like? Are you a sweet tea guy? Do you like?
So yeah, I like Coke Zero, or
Oh,
if
okay.
I do tea, it's like half and half.
Yeah.
It's half sweet, half unsweet. So I just try to watch the sugar.
I really like that. Do you drink the carbonated waters, the fizzy waters? Man, I've really enjoyed those. It was LaCroix at first, but now there's like a million off-brands. You get the off-brand. But I told my little brother about it, and he tasted one, and he said, this tastes like one Skittle dissolved into a gallon of water. He said, it doesn't have any taste. I said, well, there is no sugar in it. So beggars can't be choosers, I suppose. I don't know. Half and half tea for Pastor Barry. Did we cover everything already? I wanted to talk to you about, so we always end up talking about family stuff, and every
Yeah.
time you're on, it's,
Yeah.
I thought that it was, you mentioned this in passing. We'll get to the message in a second. But you mentioned this in passing in the message about how you start shutting down at 9 p.m.
Oh yeah.
And I was like,
If not sooner.
I felt you so much there. There was so much compassion in my soul. What time do you go to bed?
Lately it's been about 9:30, 9:40, something like that. I like to get up early,
Yeah.
so that's when the house is quiet and the kids
Rare.
are asleep normally. So yeah. So but the flip side of getting up early, you got to get in bed early. You know.
Yeah, that really is true. I have not done a good job with the early to bed. Part of it is because, and maybe you can help me with this, it's like the bedtime routine with the kids, and they get them in bed, and then it's like I have to re-put them to bed. You know,
yeah.
last night I was in and out of there, like putting them back into bed, and it's just, so then I look at the clock, and then it's like, well, it's already 9:15.
Yeah.
You know, God
Yeah.
forbid I talk to my wife before we just go to sleep.
Yeah. No, we go through the same thing. You know, it's Cannon's up and down. He's back in. Can you put me back to bed? So we go through the same thing. But usually the cutoff is, all right, Daddy's going to bed. Like that's like the house has to be quiet now.
There's no choice at this point. Like you guys are on dangerous ground if you're keeping me awake. If you're keeping each other awake, that's one thing. I need to try to start going earlier. We had the stomach virus a couple weeks ago, and it always after, because I know you guys had it. It was a couple months ago.
Yeah.
It went through everybody.
Yeah. And maybe just a few weeks ago there were a couple of us that had it. So, but yeah, normally it just, yeah.
Well, I was amazed this time, just like the aftermath has lasted. You know,
Yeah.
I felt so tired, and so I'm still not getting up as early as I probably need to be. I'm in this ethics class right now. Did I tell you about this? Man,
At Southern?
Yes,
Oh.
yes. It's one of the few classes that I got to finish up before I get the MDiv in the spring. Finishing the MDiv in the spring.
Congratulations,
Thank
man.
you. Yeah.
That's a big accomplishment.
Well, I guess it will be when it's finally done. We still got a little bit more. But this, it's really, I mean, it is challenging mentally just to think about like the reason why we do things we do, the decisions that we make. So many decisions that we take for granted ethically because it just feels obvious to us. When you peel back the layers, what does the Bible specifically say?
Yeah.
Why do we react the way that we do?
So who teaches that?
Dr. Walker, Andrew T. Walker, he actually works with, if you've heard of Ryan Anderson, Anderson actually is Catholic, but they run this ethics foundation. I can't remember what it's called. It's not the ERLC, it's something else. But the work that they're doing is really fascinating because and Pastor and I talk about this a lot. You know, the world seems to be going to hell in a handbasket, and a lot of that is because, like, we've had, along with the sexual revolution, we've had an ethical revolution.
Oh yeah.
People saying things that that used to be taboo, things that used to be just obviously wrong. Now people are saying, well, this is right. This should be celebrated. This is good.
Right.
And then so those are all ethical conversations. But how to respond to that in a way that's like logical and convincing is difficult.
Yeah, I heard John Maxwell say something years ago. Someone asked him, like, John, can you come teach us on business ethics? And he was like, there's no such thing as business ethics. And they were like, no, what do you mean? He goes, there's ethics, and they're,
Right.
you can apply them in business but there's just ethics in general, not just business, not one set here and one set here.
The first question that we had to reckon with in the class was talking about where does the ethic, if there's a capital E ethic, like where does that even come from?
Mm-hmm.
They had us read C.S. Lewis's The Abolition of Man,
Oh,
which
wow.
I'm sure you've seen that before. It's a short treatise on the idea that there is an absolute ethic, that whether you want to believe in a sovereign God or not, which obviously we do, whether you want to believe in that God or not, that ethic is written on your heart.
Mm-hmm.
There are just some things about this world that are objectively true.
Right.
And of course, the whole postmodern discussion is that everything is subjective.
Mm-hmm.
The only reality is like your own perception in your brain, which of course is philosophically untenuous and falls apart pretty quickly. But that's the prevailing way that people are talking in this day and age. So I'm learning how to respond to that. But that's a long way of saying I'm not getting up early enough right now to study through all that material, because it is a lot. There's a lot to process. So Lord help me, I'm going to try to get up earlier. So my wife, Lauren, if you're watching this, which you never do, so you're not, but if you were watching this, please remind me that I need to go to bed a little bit earlier than, I guess we've been going to bed around 10:30 or so.
Okay.
Which is probably too late. Because I had the epiphany the other day. I tried to read a book. This is getting really personal. I tried to read a book, and I immediately started falling asleep. It was like 9:30.
Oh, yeah.
And so what we ended up doing was we turned on the TV and we watched TV for like 30 minutes or something like that. And I was like, honey, if I'm too tired to read a book, why am I keeping myself up to do anything else? I should just go to bed. So I'm going to try to do that from now on. Although we started watching this, I'm such a broken record because Joanna hears me talk about this all the time, but we started watching another one of those nature documentaries.
Oh, yeah, those are fascinating.
Oh, they're incredible.
I love watching those.
And I don't understand. This one's called Supernatural. It's on Disney Plus. I don't understand how they're filming this stuff. They have a camera that's inside a sea sponge underwater, and they're looking at shrimp that are the size of a grain of rice. What? How are they doing that?
I don't know.
I wonder if they're just duping me and it's actually the whole thing is just CG. I need to look this up. Get those numbers on my desk. She's not looking up the shrimp. That's fine. I think that's all I have to say. You got anything else you want to say before we jump into the message? I've been talking too much.
Let's jump on in.
Well, again, I appreciate you preaching yesterday. The message you gave on Wednesday night, also helpful. You had a lot of heavy lifting to do while Pastor was out of town, so we appreciate it. We were in Acts chapter 16. Now, this was special for you because you visited, well, maybe not the spot, but a similar spot.
No, we were in Philippi. We went to Greece back in the spring, and Philippi was one of our stops. So, today Philippi it's a pretty rural area. There's not a whole lot there, but it's a beautiful area. It's hilly. It was, back in the day, it was very fertile. It had I'd read it had a school of medicine there. I mean,
really?
It was a well-known area, and there's a plain out beside it where Brutus and Cassius were defeated. So there's a lot of history there, not just biblical history, but military history. Anyway, it's a fascinating spot, and the ruins are in really good shape. There's a lot to see there. So we went to a place where we think Lydia was baptized, and of course they've built like a little shrine close to it, and we had a devotion there that Dr. Rick Bird led us there. It was fascinating to see.
You showed us a picture yesterday, and it was a picture I think that you personally took of what like that inner chamber of the jail probably looked like. And of course it was a ruin, so it's like it wasn't as covered as it would have been at that time. A couple of points that I wanted to hit on before we talk about the jailer himself. The one was about the stocks. So they put them in stocks, and you took us. And as always, I'm going to commend the message to any of our watchers. If you just stumbled upon this on Facebook, go back and check out that message because it's some great context and history about Philippi and also what Paul and Silas had gone through. But they're in the stocks, and what's the image for an American of stocks? Well, it's usually, and it's kind of a meme at this point. Like there's the one guy, and he's leaned over. And it's on his head and it's on his two hands, But for them, you were saying it's probably more of an upright thing. And when you got done describing it, it seemed a lot more like Christ, the crucified pose.
Yeah. So they had 5 holes in it, but I also read where they had different holes to like really stretch you out. So it could be painful, not just confining, but painful. But yeah, it was a piece of wood is all it was, and it had holes in it, for your neck, wrist, and ankles. And you were not to move, and so it's dark, you're confined, you're hurting, but in the midst of that, they're praising God.
You made the point, a very apt point, that they probably thought in that their minds probably went to Christ himself as they're in that position, and the joy, it's very painful, it's awful, but the joy at the same time of, I get to suffer in the way that my Lord suffered.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. And it wasn't Paul himself. I'm actually thinking of Peter, but there's this other text. I think about it all the time. I think it's early on in Acts. I think it might be chapter 4, where Peter, after preaching, is beaten for the first time. And he and the other disciples, they walk away praising the Lord because they got to suffer for the faith.
Yeah.
And the reason that grips me, though, is because this is the same Peter that ran from persecution.
That's right.
Just a little while ago.
Yeah.
I love hearing how it changes it.
Yeah, I may be thinking of a different verse, but I think it may even say they rejoiced because they were counted worthy.
Thank you. Yeah, that's
suffering.
Exactly what I'm thinking of.
That they like, wow, we're doing something right. Like we're actually doing what he told us to do, and so we get to suffer for that.
This is not Peter, this is Paul. That was just my own little tangent. So Paul there is suffering. He's along with Silas, but again, they understand that this is just part of the call, and they're choosing to suffer with joy, and so they start to sing. Now I'm a typical worship pastor. I always get really, really interested whenever the scripture specifically mentions singing, and so I wanted to dive in a little bit more.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more of a microscope on what they were singing, because you had an interesting theory about this.
So I think there was, and now we don't know for sure, we're not told, but my thought that what I read is Psalm 140 through 143, and those are Psalms of David when he was in trouble. Psalm 140 starts, "Deliver me, O Lord, from evil men. Preserve me from violent men who plan evil things in their heart." Well, the people who arrested them and had them beaten had evil things in their heart. So then you hear David crying out, like, God is my refuge in the midst of all of this. So, what was that, what they were singing? I don't know, but it certainly would apply to the situation.
I gave this some thought because at first you always think, well, how in the world would they have been able to pull out the right psalm at the right time? And two explanations came to my mind. One is, well, Paul elsewhere says he was a Hebrew among the Hebrews. He's very well trained. Even though writing was a big deal, like the oral tradition was still very, very strong. So it's certainly very reasonable to expect that he would have been chanting through all 150 psalms. The Psalter was compiled at that point.
Yeah.
But the other thing I thought of was, we don't, here in America, if you're raised in a Baptist church, like you're not growing up singing out of the Psalter. I guess there's some Reformed Baptists out there, but Southern Baptists, that's not what we're doing. However, I don't have any statistics to support this, but I know that everybody has more than 100 songs memorized.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Whether they're secular, sacred, whatever. If there's so much music around, you have more than that. And I think about how many times in our lives, and this will happen all the time. We get people email me, text me, that sort of thing. Hey, when we sang this, or when you said this, or when Pastor preached this, this is the song that came to mind.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all over the page.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kind. So I think that this is a perfectly natural expression of people that, hey, we're in this situation, and this is the song that's coming to mind, and it just makes sense that we should sing it.
Yeah.
It just made it so much more real to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking of Athanasius in the 300s, one of the early church fathers. He was like banished for years, and in my understanding, he would not have had a copy of the scriptures, but that's when he did a lot of his writing, and his writing is filled with scripture. So he would have had it memorized.
Right.
You know? And so it was not just during biblical times, but even after that, people would memorize large portions of scripture. And this is not a biblical thing, but I was thinking, if you ever watch The Voice, and when before they turn around and they start singing, they're always,
Mouthing the words.
Mouthing the word. They know them. Even if it's like a song, you go, I don't even know if I think I've ever heard that. Some of them know it, so they've got it memorized.
Music has this unique way of writing itself on our minds and hearts. And that's something, that's just a truth. We talked about objective. Music has this strange ability to do that, and that's one of the reasons why we have to be careful. When I was growing up, this is another tangent, but when I was growing up, like, I absolutely didn't really worry about, I can listen to secular music if I want to. I'm going to listen to, Christian music if I want to, that sort of thing. It's not going to really bother me one way or the other. And, foolish me, immature at the time, not understanding how much of that was just being written, how much of the garbage I was listening to was being written on my heart.
Yeah.
And sadly, it's still there. I'll wake up in the morning with some of those songs in my head, and I'm like, that's not my heart cry anymore.
Yeah.
But I can't unwrite it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we have any young listeners out there, but let that be a warning to you today. Be careful with the secular music.
That's right.
Back to Paul and Silas. Actually, let's go ahead and go to the jailer, because I've really I've pushed our time here. We already talked about what time we go to bed. You brought that up because when the jailer comes, and this is so practical, when the jailer takes them out of the prison, it's the middle of the night. Surely the man is tired. But no, he wakes up his whole family. He has no regard for whatever rest he's going to get. Wakes up his whole family, and they sit around and they serve up a meal to Paul and Silas and said, we need to know the gospel right here and now. And you talked about how admirable and how applicable that sacrifice of his time was, and how we should go and do likewise.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and I mean, you can imagine him getting his wife like, hey, I need you to prepare. We've got company coming, and actually they're here, and, we need them in. So now they've got to prepare, or she and her team have got to prepare things. So, yeah, it's just a sacrifice of time. And we talk about this sometimes just in church context. It's easier sometimes to write a check than it is to give your time.
Sure.
It's easier to, I'll just give online instead of going somewhere this Saturday to serve.
Right.
And it can be the same way personally. It does take time to have those conversations, people that have questions, that people that need ministering to. We gave the example of Rick Burgess, staying in someone's house and going, hey, I've got to be at work in 4.5 hours, which means I'm not sleeping much at all tonight, but you're worth it. The gospel's worth it.
Yes. And the gospel itself, you talked about how, and this is so important because people feel like they got to have a theology degree to share the gospel. You don't. The guy says, sirs, what must I do to be saved? And I loved your example. Paul doesn't say, well, let's go back to Genesis 1. First of all, get rid of all that evolution stuff.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't say any of that. He says, believe on the Lord Jesus, and you will be saved.
That's the bottom line. Yeah, and there's a time, did they have questions later? I think they probably did. Maybe he had said, hey, we haven't heard about this Jesus, tell us. And that's where he says they spoke the word of the Lord to them. But in the moment, what do they need to know? They need to know to believe upon Jesus. That's the bottom line.
And the beautiful thing is that is enough. Is there more refinement? Can you learn more? Yes. I mean, the mysteries of the Lord are endless. You can study till the day that you pass into glory, and you still won't learn everything. But as far as the understanding that's needed to receive the free gift of salvation, it is, the Romans says that he who calls upon the name of the Lord
Yeah.
will be saved.
Yeah. You know, and you think of Jesus saying in Acts 1:8, "You will be my witnesses." Well, a witness is, hey, this is what I've experienced. This is what I've seen.
Right.
You know, and so as we all grow in our faith, we'll be able to answer some of those questions. But at first, none of us could. I mean, I couldn't. You know, I remember, you know, starting at Dallas Seminary, and they give you a test there. I don't know if they still do it, but they would give you a test your first semester, and it was on like biblical knowledge, and then they would give you the same test when you graduated, and it was to see, like, you know, how much have you grown. And I remember taking it the first time and thought, oh, I'm gonna do really well in this. I grew up in church,
Yeah.
and there were a lot of questions I didn't know. I don't even know what I made on it, but one of the questions was, what is the mother of John the Baptist? What is her name?
Right.
You know,
Just simple stuff like that. It's Rebecca,
Yeah.
right?
Elizabeth.
Okay, yeah. See, I don't know.
I didn't know it though. I mean,
Trivia,
the first
Bible
year
trivia
seminary.
101.
But anyway, I don't know why I got off on that, but I'm
That's
sure it was
funny.
related to it.
Isn't that so funny how we can explain penal substitutionary atonement, but I can't remember their names, Elizabeth? That's so silly. But anyway, Jerry, what were you saying?
I'm so glad we have such a good friendship.
Okay, well, wait, we do need to wrap this up here in a second. Well, praise the Lord that he grows us. I mean, we have. I guess, are there any theories? You've probably read some of this. Are there any theories about what happened to the jailer after this? Did you guys encounter any of that when you were in Philippi?
No, you know, I don't know. I mean, the church was developed there, so
Yeah.
you know, he could have become an elder in the church. I don't know. It is interesting that Richard Wurmbrand referred to him when he with the people who would torture him. He would think, you know, maybe this guy could become like the jailer one day. You know, so no, I don't know what became of him, but you know, I would imagine he became probably a leader in the church. I mean, he was a leader in his community. So.
That's right. That's right. Well, clearly a leader in his household, because when he was saved, everybody immediately followed suit. Yeah, we don't know what happened. I mean, there's so many of these biblical figures that we don't know exactly what happened, and I think there's a lesson even in that, because the point overall is Christ. We do know what happened with him. He's now ascended. He's living forever, the right hand of the Father, with his renewed body, that same kind of renewed body that he promises to us in glory. That's what really matters. And honestly, if we get too obsessed with some of the minutia of what happens to these characters, sadly, we'd be missing the point.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for speaking to us, Pastor Barry. We got anything? I guess we could talk a little bit about what's coming up on the church calendar horizon. We got the Hispanic Church Days coming this Saturday.
Yeah. Big
That's
day.
really going to be something.
Yeah, hundreds of people we're expecting, right?
Yeah, well, and for anybody that doesn't know, that's just going to be an event that the church Valleydale's hosting. Obviously, Glacia Valleydale's our Hispanic congregation. They meet upstairs every Sunday morning, and they're partnering through the Baptist State Board of Missions to have this big one-day conference. I think there's going to be 20 Hispanic congregations that are going to be here. That's going to be really fun. That's this coming Saturday. And then in 2 weeks' time, we've got Fall Fest.
Fall Fest. Yep.
One service on October the 30th at 10 a.m. If you haven't heard that enough times yet, we're telling you again, it's one service on October the 30th. And we're returning to a normal midweek schedule this week. We got the classes coming back.
Yeah, so Kathy Napier will be kicking off another 7-week series on addictions. So opioid, alcohol, sexual addiction, and the sexual part will have 2 weeks where women will be with her, men will be together as well. So please come. You know, maybe you have friends or family that are struggling with that, or even a neighbor that's struggling with addiction, wondering, hey, where do I go for help? And that's where we're really focused on, not just the addiction, but how do we get victory over that?
Addiction hits basically every family, you know. So many people want to suffer in silence. They don't realize that it's hit just about every family that's out there. So I'm sure that'll be helpful. And that's coming back to midweek this week. Choir's going on. Hey, for anybody, if you're on the fence about joining the choir, you just need to go ahead and come, because we already started working on Christmas music.
Can't wait to hear it.
So Merry Christmas, everybody. Have a great day.
It'll be another Hallmark movie for Christmas, right?
That's it. Yeah, you want to do that? Should we make a Hallmark movie? Maybe you and me can co-direct a Hallmark movie. That might be fun.
Oh, that would be fun.